tonight at the Blue Frog. Most of you probably don't know me. My name is Timon. I'm a board member of the INBA. The INBA stands for the India-Netherlands Business Association. And we are hosting tonight this event called the Holland India Innovation Talks. Basically, the INBA is an association for Indian companies who are doing business in the Netherlands and Dutch companies that are doing business here in India. So if you want to know more about us, then there is a flyer which is situated at the exit. So please have a look at it. So to get on with the presentations, I would like to welcome a very famous radio host from India, Mr. Anish Trivedi. Thank you.
Thank you, Timur. It's amazing the lies you hear about yourself when you're being introduced on stage. I'm actually here under false pretenses. I've been saying for a while that I'm looking at investing in the Netherlands, which is why I've been invited to INBA this evening. But Jeffrey has just told me after our second beer that apparently chatting up your waitress in a bar in Amsterdam is not considered a job interview. And tipping your bartender at the end of the night is not considered an employment contract. So very fortunately, we have people on stage who are going to be talking about what it really is like to be doing business in the Netherlands, and hopefully are going to do a far better job than I have done, either in talking or in doing business. So when we talk about innovation, to me, what excites me about the innovation side is that unlike inventors, when you innovate, you take something that possibly exists already and you do it better. You make a change that reflects in the lives of those around you, that reflects in the way society interacts with each other, and the way society interacts with your product. And we're very lucky this evening to have 5 speakers who have done just that. Our first speaker is Milaya Sonerji, who is a designer who believes that design can make a difference not just in the way people interact, but in the way it changes the lives of those who interact with it. So ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome, if this clicker works, that was Dutch innovation, by the way. It was bought at Chroma, but we're going to blame it on the Dutch over here. There you go. Milaya, it's all yours.
So in India, we have these huge families, right? So many of you have them, and some of you must have heard that we have big families. So as a child, I had to attend a lot of family gatherings. And my parents used to really drag me to these family gatherings. And the one thing I always looked forward to in those events is playing around with my cousins. And there was this one uncle who had games for us. He used to be jumping around with us, making us kids have the time of our lives. This man was extremely successful in his career. He was confident and powerful. But then, this hale and hearty person, I saw his health deteriorate completely. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a disease that causes degeneration of the nervous system. So a person who is extremely independent suddenly finds tasks like eating or drinking much more difficult because of tremors. My uncle started using a walker to walk. And to take a turn, he literally had to take one step at a time like this, and it took him forever. So this person, who was the center of attention in every family gathering, was suddenly hiding. He was hiding from the pitiful look in people's eyes. And he is not the only one in the world. Every year, 60,000 people are newly diagnosed with Parkinson's. And this number's only on the rise. As designers, we dream of this big solution that solves all these multifaceted problems. One solution that solves everything. But it need not always be like that. What you can do is create simple solutions for small problems and then eventually make a big impact. So my aim was not to cure Parkinson's. What I wanted to do was make their everyday tasks much simpler and eventually create a difference in their lives. So that's what I started with. The first thing I targeted was tremors, because it's one of the most common symptoms. And my uncle and some of the other Parkinson's patients that I was speaking to told me that they stopped drinking tea, coffee, or anything in public just to avoid embarrassment of spilling. So I designed the no-spill cup. I'm going to go across to get it. And it works purely on its form. So the curve on top deflects the liquid back inside every time they have tremors. And thus, it keeps the liquid inside compared to a normal cup much more. And the reason it works is because it looks like a cup that could be used by you, by me, any clumsy person. So it's not tagged as a Parkinson's patient product. And that's key for making it much more comforting for them to use products like these. So, one problem solved, many, many more to go. And all this while I was talking to my uncle, I realized that I was getting really superficial information, or answers to my own questions, actually. So I said, let's observe him. Let's observe him in his daily life, while he's watching TV, while he's chilling on the sofa. And that's what I did. And then, when he was walking to his dining table, it struck me that this man, who can barely walk on flat land, how does he climb his staircase? Because he lives on the first floor, and I know that his staircase does not have this seat attached to a rail that takes the elderly up a staircase. Some of the developed countries like Netherlands have all that. But he really needs to climb the staircase. So he told me, let me show you how I do it. Let's take a look at what I saw. Shocked? So this person who was not at all being able to walk on flat land was suddenly a pro at climbing stairs. And if you noticed, he really took the turns very easily. So I researched this, and I realized that the reason this happens is because it is a continuous motion. So another person who suffers from the same symptoms, the moment he was put on a bicycle, all his symptoms vanished. Again, a continuous motion. So the key for me was to translate this feeling of walking on a staircase back to flat land. And I tried some ideas, but let's see if some of them worked or not. he walked faster, right? I call this the staircase illusion. It's just simple print on the floor. And if you noticed, when the staircase illusion abruptly ended, he froze. This moment is called freezing of gait. So why not have a continuous staircase illusion flowing through all their rooms, making them feel much more comfortable in their own homes? Now, I could have easily made this into a Google Glass or a projection or something digital, but I stuck to simple print on the floor. And the reason for this is it fits in their world much better. It could be taken into hospitals, for hotels for that matter, restaurants, railway stations, and then all these spaces, making them feel invited again in these spaces. And I'm going to say a little bit about my story. How I speak here is because I did my bachelor's in product design, and that's when I designed these products. So I think Indian design really taught me, to go head on, just solve the problem. So almost grassroots level design, the simplest solution. And that made me, I think, a really nice product designer. And then I actually did my master's in the Netherlands in strategic product design. And that almost gave a name to what I was doing, which is user-centered design. Put the user in the middle. And it gave me tools and methods to design every product in that manner, product or service. And now, I currently work in the Netherlands at a company called Van Berlo. It's a design consultancy, and they as well design a lot of products and services and packaging and everything. And why I belong there is because they do the same thing. They really look at the business needs, the client's needs, and that of the user, and come up with a solution that bridges this gap. And the user is key. So their approach is that we do not design baby car seats. No. What we design is a safe way to take your baby from point A to B. We do not design a coffee machine. No. We design the right coffee for you. So it's all about the experience. We do not design a thermostat. No. What we design is a means for you to interact with your room. And that's the approach I believe in, and that's the reason I feel I belong here. And in the end, what I wish to say is that smart in today's world has really become synonymous to high tech. And the world is only getting smarter and smarter day by day. But what we need are human-centered solutions. Smart could be something that's simple and yet effective, right? That was the original meaning. So why not go back to it? Let's go out there. Find these complex problems. Don't be scared of them. Break them. Boil them down into much smaller problems. And then create simple solutions for them. Imagine what we all could do if we all came up with simple solutions. What would the world be like if we combined all our simple solutions? Let's make a smarter world, but with simplicity. Thank you.
Thanks, Malaya.
Yes.
We're going to keep this simple, so if you have any questions, let's try and do them a little later. But I do have one question for you,
Yes.
which leads from what I was saying when I first started. Is it that much more difficult? It's everyone talks about the Tesla, and that's a great go-to product for innovation. But is it that much harder to take something simple, something everyday, and then create and then repurpose it to where it changes the lives?
Yeah, I think both are equally simple, equally difficult. Even though this looks so simple, it's not the easiest thing to come up with. And taking it forward is the most hardest, and executing it. So I think both are equally difficult, but that I sometimes think that this looks less complicated. So yeah.
And you really wish you'd come up with a Tesla, don't you?
Yes, sometimes I know, but I genuinely believe in this, that really just go out there, do it. Some of the simplest solutions have the biggest impact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, talking about the Tesla, I find it rather amusing that our next speaker is from a company that has more bicycles than it has people in the Netherlands. And he's coming to talk about how we're going to change driving conditions in a country that has more potholes than roads. But TomTom has been in Pune for a number of years. They've been working on development over there. And I'd like to welcome on stage Rolf Peter Schäfer, who's going to talk about how they are going to change the way we drive next year, next decade, and hopefully for eternity.
Good evening. Hello. So, yeah, it was a great story of the first speaker, but now it's a totally different scope. I'm going to talk about innovation at TomTom, innovation about your journey, a day-to-day journey of movement of people. So, I want to talk about TomTom, and in particular, as said, on the journey of people. Who's knowing TomTom, by the way? Hands up. Who is knowing TomTom? I see quite a bit of people. Great. So TomTom is an amazing story. The company became big in the year of 2004 with the innovation of the P&D category, of the GPS device. In only 3 years, from a 50-people company with 8 million euro revenue, it grew to $1 billion company. I was employee number 400 in 2006. And at this time, we were thinking on a second innovation, what I'm going to speak today. But also, you see here what happened in the years after this big innovation. TomTom was on change. TomTom is not only the GPS maker you might know, and people in Europe sometimes call her navigation device a TomTom. That is a statement about this big innovation, which is highly appreciated, in particular in Europe, but also in the rest of the world. But the world is changing, and the smartphone, but we also invested in other categories, in automotive, in licensing for software, maps, and services, where I'm in. I'm running a unit for traffic and travel information. And we are very big in Pune. You might not know, more than 2,000 people working for TomTom in India, making maps and also software to make this whole system running. But today, I want to speak about my innovation journey, which started in 1997, when I started to try to monitor traffic, not with inductive loop in the pavement, as it was done traditionally, or radar or cameras. I used the car as a sensor, what we called the floating car. It was 1997, we started exactly with one of these sensors and build a technology around how to monitor traffic. And I want to talk you through this, where it came from and what does it mean for all of us about the journey. I also want to speak what does it mean for cities. The journey and movement of people is an important thing of everybody, for commuter, for tourists, for businesses. I want to move quickly, fast, reliable, eco-friendly, but also cost-efficient. And there are a lot of challenges. Everybody knows cities share the same scope of problem. There are high congestion level, in particular in the emerging markets, very high congestion level. But we also compare, for a number of years, we compare the congestion level between 300 cities at the moment around the globe. You have issues about parking. Parking causes a lot of congestion in cities. If you search for parking space, you also contribute to congestion. If you have roadwork, if you have events, that all impacts your journey, and you have to know it if you want to provide a good navigation system and a good travel information service. And that is also in scope of my personal journey in the last 15, 20 years, in particular in the last 10 years in TomTom. So these are the two big things that drive a lot of change in the industry. The P&D, I mentioned, it became big with TomTom, and then we put another innovation on this device in the year 2006. We made it connected. We put a modem in this P&D. We put a modem even in a connected in-dash, where we had a project with Renault in the year of 2010, and grew a community of a couple of million people just to make it connected. And then the next innovation came in the smartphone industry, first driven by Apple, with make the smartphone UX better, more affordable to use, and put also navigation in. Android ecosystem came, a big growth, and it is create a connected world of people, of users, which is an asset for many, many things, for communication, but also for great services around mobility. And that is exactly what I'm talking here about innovation these days in my ecosystem, in my field of mobility. When we made these systems, PNDs, smartphones, in-dash connected, we suddenly became and grew a big community. And in the last 7, 8 years, we grew a community of 450 million connected users. We collect data in real time from these people, from apps, from in-dash, from fleet management, from PNDs, you name it. And this creates multi-billion data sets every day. It tells us a lot of things. It tells us how fast you can drive, where people drive from where to where. Are there delays? Where is it running very well? And that is useful information to drive good services and provide reliable services about your journey in the city, on a road, but also elsewhere. And suddenly, with this growth of this amazing community and our innovation in the navigation space, with navigation system, integration of the traffic information, travel information, parking, we found out that there's also an added value in the city domain. We can help governments, we can help businesses also to make mobility and movement in cities smarter and contribute with our community and our data. And we create a vision how we can build this ecosystem around a connected car, a connected users. And don't invest anymore in the old-fashioned technology like inductive loops, cameras, infrared sensors. The car becomes a sensor, and that is an essential statement. Even when you look what's happening in the automotive industry, in the smartphone industry, everything is connected. We're talking about hyper-connectivity. So we're talking about automatic driving, ADAS, automatic advanced driver assistant. And these things are important to understand what's going to happen. The car becomes a sensor with a very high penetration. So I can communicate with the car in both directions. I can send services, but I also collect data about the position, about the speed. Is there the fog light on? Is there a wiper on? So I have even weather information. So the car is a fantastic thing. It's basically a moving inductive loop. And if you understand this, then you are prepared for a paradigm change also in traffic management. And that is our vision we are working at right now with the industry to make change in traffic management and control. So what you need is really a system which is not only the service, but you also need the ingredients, which is a map. We're using here also in India, in Pune in particular. You need even a platform which is incrementally at changes on the fly, which we call transactional map making. And that is also was done here in Pune, close to Mumbai, to make a transactional map system to implement changes on the fly into the map. With a standard called NDS, we bring it on a navigation device that you have fresh navigation data and can use it in a turn-by-turn experience. And then we add real-time data, like traffic information, parking, to bring you on time or in the best path to your journey. How important this is, I noticed this morning when we came from Pune, the delay was around 1 hour to an original free-flow travel time overnight. So 1 hour delay, it's an important thing to know if I start my journey, right? And this is where we build an ecosystem to bring all these components together. Traffic information, fresh maps, and a navigation system dealing with all these components. We built in the last 7 years an ecosystem of real-time services for traffic in 50 countries around the globe. So we are partners in automotive, all brands you can think about. We are white-labeled supplier. We are working with Apple, with Uber, all big folks in the industry. And now we want to bring this technology also to India and provide this important asset of real-time information, traffic information, also for navigation system in the automotive and in the smartphone industry. That is a big thing because India is, at first, is big, a large country, and is also somehow different. And if you look around on the road, it's for me a quite chaotic behavior I see. There's also, it's a different attitude as in Europe, and you have to think about how we implement this in the right way to localize this and not just make a blueprint copy of an European or US system. So what we did to approach the citizen and also make it a joint play between the government, the research, the industry, and the citizen, the commuter, we created a free portal called TomTom City, and we launched it a couple of weeks ago with 25 cities around the globe, and we offer real-time traffic services, traffic flow, congestion index. We compare congestion level around the globe, all for free, but also implement a license model for governments, for businesses to use our content for traffic management, for traffic planning. And this is also in scope we want to bring to India. We have a concept for Pune, for Mumbai and Delhi. We want to bring the same platform to India. Here's an example what we see already in our database for in India. An example what we see in the travel time in Pune. When you compare night free flow with morning rush hour, you have usually half of the speed or double travel time. Here's a speed plot based on pure user-centric data, the speed information from probe data. Here's some statistic information about the path from Pune to direction to Mumbai with the speeds around the journey. You see clearly also the drop down at intersection, how steep is the drop of speed. Here's an example in Mumbai, also with the speed along this route. You see on the screen from A to B. In particular, in the city, it's a huge drop of speed. What you experience every day, you see in our data, very, very dominant. So if you see the last part of the plot here, down right, you go from 80 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, when you reach the boundary of the cities, you drop to 5 to 10 kilometers per hour, even day and night, very low speed, and that's the pain you feel every day here. But you can do much more when you develop this ecosystem. And also think about how you can improve the journey. There's ideas to connect the traffic light with navigation system to give speed advice. It sounds certainly very funny when you look to the street to the junctions, what's happening in India. Maybe you need rather a connected horn system than a connected signal system, but it will also come, I think. This is about green driving. If you have less stops, then you can go faster. But at first, of course, you have to think about how to take out demand to reduce the congestion level. Then you can think about these things. That is exactly what you have to do. You have to understand traffic demand, where people go, and where they come from, at which time. And the user-centric data is a perfect instrument to collect information about traffic demand, to understand where is the root cause of a congestion, where people make a route choice to make a certain detour around and why they do it. You understand the behavior, which is the first thing to implement change. So, and often, if you just focus on a road, is maybe the wrong thing. You have to do right investment decisions. If you want to change, we have to implement public transport, bike lanes, pedestrian walks, to take out demand from the road to reduce congestion. That's the only way to make a change, except you have space and build much more roads, which is usually not possible in cities. So holistic view is very important. You can do even planning. If you make a bridge construction and you have data available and you have simulation models, you can make a good pre-planning of your investment, what's the best place and what is the best change of the current congestion level. So make it a better decision, value for money. Also, what you can do with such data. We can help with parking. We can guide people straight to the parking because we understand where are the parking lots, but also where are places on the street where you can park well. And how we do that? We analyze the last mile behavior. If you see people searching around the destination area, that means you can't find a parking space there. So if you know that, you can put a low likelihood at this destination road and guide the user somewhere else where it's easier to find a parking lot. Also, if you combine a service with navigation, there is an asset. You can add payment in the smartphone or PND and also guide them to parking lots. And then the next thing is also important. if you guide people around the traffic, then you also, of course, you have an individual benefit. I save time. That is what we sell today. But when more people join this system and making a detour and using navigation system, then they're helping also these people which are not connected. And that is an interesting phenomenon. If you see here the penetration level of connected users, 100% is a 1, and you see the travel time saving. If you have low penetration, you have a good benefit to the normal users, and if you are around 20%, there's an optimum, and suddenly, with more people coming into the connected system, the travel time is even increasing. And what's the lessons learned? You have to, at first, find the right balance, load balancing algorithm, but you also, when you move in this direction here, you have a perfect sensing system. And perfect sensing means you can also think about control algorithms to make a better traffic management system and control to use the capacity of the entire road network. So we bring more people on the road with the same capacity of the road network. But there's a downside. If you improve that network, then suddenly more people jumping on the road, because even those people are far away and have suddenly a journey of 1 hour, which was 1 hour and a half before, they will also hit the road. And then you increase the demand even more. And that is a dilemma we are here sitting in, because you have to bring everything in balance. And that is my final message. You have, if you just focus on the road, it's fully insufficient. Smart cities means understand traffic demand and find for your city the right mix and the right balance of different modes of transport. Find the right parking places, find about what's the best positions for public transport, for bike lanes, etc., you name it. And if you have everything in balance, then it works. Just focusing on road is not the right answer. But telematics can help to improve and understand the whole ecosystem, and that is a priori a good thing to start. But in the end, it's also a decision of the politics to set objectives function, what I want to reach in my city, what is the focus. And that's technology cannot solve. That is also a decision by the citizen and by the politician to make a choice, what you want to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. How many of you listen to the radio in Mumbai when you're driving? Oh, 3 people. No wonder I'm still poor. So, for all the years that I did radio in Bombay, we did traffic reports, and every 20 minutes we'd do a traffic report. And we had people on the roads. We did crowdsourcing. We had listeners who would call in. We had listeners who would send in text messages. We had listeners who would email. We had listeners who would stand outside our door and say, this is what the traffic is like. And you know what? I ignored every one of them, because in Bombay City, you can just say there's traffic on Pedder Road, because there is always traffic on Pedder Road. So someday, hopefully, we're going to reach a situation where this is actually going to make a difference in all our lives. Well, our next speaker, strangely enough, has cracked the secret that has eluded mankind for the past 3,000 years, converting dross matter into gold. So would you please welcome our local alchemist, Joost de Kleiver. Joost, all yours.
Thank you. Take that for you. Thank you. That should get some attention. Namaste. Namaste, Mumbai. I'm learning. So, who likes to hear about mobile phones? Yeah? All right. Who likes to hear about gold? Yeah? All right, good. Then I have a good story. Because my story is about me being a gold digger. You probably recognize me. This is me. Just 250 years ago. Same outfit. I want to talk to you about being a gold digger and extracting gold from mobile phones, mobile phone waste. So the background of that concept. Mobile phones, and I've clearly seen that a lot also here in India, but very much also in the countries where we work, and that's specifically in Africa. Mobile phones have played an enormously important role in developing countries that had just been, let's say, in the 19th century, just 15 years ago, and all of a sudden, due to the involvement of mobile phones, came into the 21st century. Information sharing, getting knowledge about how your politicians work, giving information about what you want to do as an entrepreneur. So really getting in touch with society. Great products. I love them. 15 years ago already, my first job in the industry, so I really saw how the product developed. But I also saw at my travels in Africa that at end of life, this happens. And this is in Ghana, a dump site called Agbogbloshie, near the capital of Accra. And at this location, mobile phones, similar to other electronic wastes, are being dumped, sometimes burned, and definitely always improperly treated. As a result, mobile phones, which again are great products, turn into chemical waste because of their chemicals, because of their heavy metals, flame retardants, even though that is not needed, because mobile phones also contain valuable products, valuable metals. So this is something that I really wanted to stop, the dumping and illegal processing of waste. So how to do that? We developed a solution that is now applicable in 9 countries in Africa, focusing on the collection of waste, mobile phone waste, that cannot be recycled locally. And that cannot be recycled locally because electronic recycling isn't facilitated, for example, in the whole of the continent of Africa. It's a very difficult process. If you want to extract some metals out of waste, it's possible, but usually it's being done in a very unsafe and environmentally unfriendly way. So if you want to do it in a right way and a safe way, it's not possible in Africa. So we started collecting phones, collaborating with local partners, people from the countries where we work. And so far, we are now heading towards collecting the 1 millionth phone next month. Thank you very much. So what is the proposition about? As I mentioned, it looks like a chemical waste product, but actually it's a source of income. Because the gold, the silver, copper, other metals that are inside of a phone have a value. So we can pay people to collect mobile phones when they have no value whatsoever. They cannot be used, cannot be repaired. And in Africa, if people don't use their phone anymore, you're quite sure that they've been repaired 7 times, had a few owners, and are totally end of life at that moment. We pay for that waste. We collect it until it's at a certain amount and it's worth shipping, and then bring it to the best recyclers in the world that then give us some money to pay again our collectors. So that's a sort of an NGO story, which is great because we were an NGO at first in 2010 when we started, but we want to be a commercial company. And 2 years ago we turned into one. And if you want to be commercial, you have to stop talking about problems and about sadness of the story. You have to talk about coolness. So what's cooler than the A-Team? So this is the A-Team van, which is driving around in Ghana, collecting waste from markets, driving by churches who are also collecting on our behalf, schools, and other repair or reuse mobile phone shops that are now have finally a solution that they can do something with the waste that they could not deal with. So we make it cool, and of course we make it practical. But then the key question, where is the gold? Or actually, where is the business case? As I mentioned, we pay for the mobile phone, and that's possible because we get money also for this waste. Let me just stand here. Our average payout price is about 70 cents for a phone. This is what the recyclers pay us. We pay people in Asia and Africa, as I mentioned, focusing now mainly on Africa, but hopefully soon also starting more in Asia. Some 35 euro cents for a phone. So a phone, again, that would otherwise be thrown away. We make some costs by shipping them and handling them and making sure that it's being done in a safe way. And at the end, we make money. So we have a business case by turning waste into an income for people in developing countries. So that's great for the people in developing countries, but it's also great for people in the Netherlands. And I think that's also an interesting opportunity for people in India. Clearly, this is a business opportunity to collect waste in India, but I think that we can also do the same thing that we are now doing in the Netherlands, and that is involving people and companies and organizations from the telecom sector to become more responsible in collecting this waste and turning this into income. For example, if you buy a new phone, why not just add a little bit of money and use that money to collect a waste phone so that you have circularity, sorry for the fashionable term, sustainable processes in the telecom industry. And that is working quite well for us. Corporates, even though that has been quite different 10 years ago, corporates are now the friends of social enterprises such as ours. If we work together with companies, we can have much bigger impact, we collect much more phones, and they can benefit also from the results that we achieve, because the results also reflect well on their reputation. So this is what we call one for one. If you buy a phone, then you add just a little bit of money extra, and then a waste phone is collected. And I think this is also a proposition that we can introduce into India. So hopefully we'll have good discussions with some partners here. So this is the key of my discussion, but for you, of course, this is the main thing. This is where you will find the gold. Thank you.
So let me understand this right. We are going to ship all our garbage from India to you in the Netherlands.
I love garbage, yes.
Dude, there aren't that many ships in the world.
I've seen some garbage here, yes.
Is there actually an economic model in this? Do you actually extract enough gold, other metals to be able to make this? You said you're now looking at a commercial venture, not just an NGO.
Exactly, yeah.
How do you convince investors there's actually money in this at the end of the day?
There are two things, clearly. There's money, but there's also impact. So positive impact for environment, for people's health, for social benefits. But there's also a financial business case, but that's a volume game. So if we collect enough phones, then you can make money with this. And now we've grown just from collecting 300,000 phones last year to almost 1 million this year. And with that growth, I can definitely assure you we have a business case.
Good to hear.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm not sure how many of you read recently about the Chinese building a 3D house in the space of a few hours. This was a multi-story house that you could actually move into, and it was all 3D printed. So let me understand this right. A country that cannot make a lighter that will last me one cigar is building a 3D printed house, and they want me to move into that. Well, here to tell us a little more about that, and hopefully explain why it's not quite as stupid as it might sound, I'd like to introduce on stage Mari Basa, who's going to talk about just how 3D printing is going to change your life.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Well, good evening. I'm going to pick up some few parts that I will explain later. But yeah, I'm going to talk about 3D printing. So I'm here on behalf of my colleague, Joris van Tubergen. He could not make it here, so he asked me. So we are both product designers, and we both work at Protospace, which is a fab lab. And a fab lab stands for Fabrication Laboratory, which is a workspace with digital controlled machines that everyone can use. So a lot of people think that 3D printing equals magic. Sadly, it doesn't. It's just putting material real precise on top of each other. So at the moment, we're in the middle of a digital fabrication revolution. We are going from mass production to personal fabrication. For example, Milea's cup was specially designed for her uncle. We already had some digital revolutions, communication, computation, and also fabrication is going digital. Neil Gershenfeld, he's an American MIT professor, had a vision. And his vision was that you can make almost anything with these three machines: a CNC milling machine, a vinyl cutter, and a laser cutter. And with those machines, you can make almost anything. And if you cannot do that with these machines, you can make a new machine that can make what you want to make. So Fab Labs have some keywords. The most important one is that we are open source. We share everything. The other one is that all the machines are digital controlled. Because we of Photospace are not the only Fab Lab in the world. As you can see, it's a worldwide web. So the nice thing is that Mileya can send me this file from India in 3D, and I can print it in a Fab Lab in the Netherlands, or even in Canada, or Australia. So what do we do at Photospace? We do lots of things. Most important one is that we're doing research on bioprinting. We are trying to print cartilage specifically for in the knee. But we also do design thinking with companies. We do business events, co-creations. And 1.5 days, the lab is open for everyone to use to make their visions come to life. So what I already told is that machines can make machines. This was the first DIY 3D printer. It's called a RepRap, and all the white and green parts are 3D printed. All the electronics and metal rods, you can order them online. So you can make another one of those, and maybe hundreds. But you can also start evolving them. And that's what's happening at the moment. There are so many 3D printers in the world. And I'm going to talk to you about the cheapest way of 3D printing. This one is called an Ultimaker. And we are very proud of Ultimaker because it was developed in our lab. And it's one of the world's best-selling DIY 3D printer at this time. So this machine works with plastics. And those plastics you have in various colors, but you also have some wood material or some glow-in-the-dark material or even some bronze fill. But it's always plastic and always one color. So 3D printing is made for prototyping, not for the end result. But if you need, for example, a prototype that has multiple parts, you can stack some printers on top of each other, connect them to each other with some electronics and some coding, and you have your own little factory. This was in 2009, and this was like last month. This is the new Ultimaker 2, and this is a plug-and-play machine. But because it's all open source, even the Ultimaker is open source, you can transform them into other types of printers. So you can also print in full color by working at a different type of 3D printing. You can also print ceramics or print food, but you are always limited to the print size of 20 by 20 by 20 centimeters, which is not that big. So what my colleague did is that he flipped the print head upside down, then flipped the whole printer upside down, attached it to a rail, and while it is printing, it's pulling itself up. So now you can print a life-size elephant. As you can see, there are 5 Z Unlimited machines in the back. And this elephant was printed in 2.5 weeks. This was an online petition, and once you signed the petition, your name would be printed on the elephant. I don't know if you can see it, but the wrinkles of the elephant's skin, there's been a font especially made, and my name is on there as well. It's really nice. But there's also a Dutch company who blew it out of proportion. Dus Architects. They started printing an Amsterdam canal house. As the presentator said, in China they are printing in concrete. In Amsterdam we're still printing in plastic because it's recyclable. So what they did is they test all the parts on a regular Ultimaker, and when that worked, they just built a huge one. They bought a shipping container, put it on its side, and built a 3D printer inside. The electronics is just the same as an Ultimaker. So you can just blow up the files and print a house. And the first house is being opened not that long ago. So all the blue parts are 3D printed. And this is just a temporary house, so when it's done, they shred the material and print something new with it. This one, is there a trumpet player in the house? I would really love that if that was the case. No one? Well, I cannot play the trumpet, but the Dutch PostNL, which is a postal office company such as UPS, Joris sent a 3D printer while it was printing this trumpet. So he started the printer while he was dropping the box off at the company. There was a GoPro attached, and when it was delivered at Netherlands' best trumpet player, he could just pick it out and play a song with it. It's sad that nobody can play the trumpet in here, but I've got some footage, so if you want to see, I can show you. But there are very more types of 3D printing. Joris Laarman, which is not my colleague, but his name is also Joris, he rarely knew anything about 3D printing, but he still had a vision. He wanted to print a bridge over one of Amsterdam's canals. So he bought a robotic arm, gathered some people who knew a bit more about a robotic arm, and they started printing. And they have now the first prototypes of the bridge done. So the project will start soon. Another one of my favorites is Olivier van Herpt. He's a Dutch ex-student of the Dutch Design Academy, and he graduated with a new type of extruding material. So he made an extruder that can push through one whole block of clay and print these size objects. And normally, when you are making ceramics, you need a gypsum mold, and it needs to be tapered so you can get it out. But he is printing such cool stuff which is not able to do with the normal type of making porcelain. So he is one of my favorites. So that was what I wanted to talk about. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mary. Can I just say that I can't play the trumpet, but I can certainly blow my own?
That's nice, that's nice.
Any questions while we still have her on stage?
I cannot play the trumpet, can you?
Okay, we'll get her back on stage to do that for us in just a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker has been doing something quite different. For those of you who've ever traveled, as I often do, across the harbor in Bombay, from the Gateway of India across to the mainland, and for those of you who are just visiting, yes, Bombay is the island, across is the mainland. But when you go from the Gateway of India to the mainland, you will find as you're going along on the ferry that there is more plastic bobbing in the water than there are fish. And when you're on the ferry, you will often find people on the top deck who are feeding the seagulls, and then they will throw their plastic water bottle into the water, they'll throw their chips packet into the water, and at some point in time, that's all collecting at the bottom. Strangely enough, when I heard about our next speaker, I was told he's been doing something about the canals in Amsterdam, and he's been going through the canals in Amsterdam, diving down, picking up plastic bottles over there. So my first question was, okay, I can understand why we have plastic bottles in Bombay Harbor outside the Gateway of India. Why do you have plastic bottles in the canals of Amsterdam? And I was told Indian tourists. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Marius Smith.
All right. I'm very much aware that I'm the person standing between you and the bar, so I try to make it short and snappy. I'm Marius Smith. I'm the founder of Plastic Whale. It's the first professional plastic fishing company in the world. My actual occupation is plastic fisherman. And my story is about how I actually started this company and why I started this. Because since I started this company 5 years ago, my life has changed completely. Nothing is the same anymore. And now I have just 15 minutes just to explain how and why. Well, this is a beach near Accra, Western Africa, Ghana. A friend of mine has taken it. He travels to Africa a lot. And it reminded me of a beach that I saw about 12 years ago when I was traveling the world for a year, together with my girlfriend, who's today my wife. And we were staying on this beach, this pristine little beach on the north side of Borneo, near Kota Kinabalu. And one morning we woke up, and the weather was really bad because a few hundred kilometers north of Borneo there had been a typhoon. So there was a lot of inland wind, a lot of rain. And when we arrived at the beach, it looked a bit like this. And I was shocked because if you look on the world map, there's nothing but sea for hundreds and hundreds of miles north of Borneo. So I was figuring out, okay, who puts it there? How much must there be at sea? How much plastic waste must there be at sea when just this little beach gets engulfed after just one storm? And during my travels, I got confronted by more and more plastic waste. And when I got back home, this is just opposite my house in Amsterdam, I saw that plastic waste, or the phenomenon called plastic soup, isn't a faraway problem. In our news, we're always talking about the Great Pacific, the Great Garbage Patch and everything, but it starts right in our backyard. So I decided to start doing something from my backyard, but I didn't know how because my background is marketing. I was always in the office. I never started anything. I just told other people to do stuff. So I was frustrated for a few years, and after a few years, I became a freelancer. It gave me more time to think about how to tackle this problem. And at that specific time, something major changed worldwide. And it was social media. And because of social media, all of a sudden you didn't have to be a loner anymore. You could connect to people all around the world with the same kind of ambition or frustration or mission or wish. And I was, at that time, inspired by Kennedy's speech of 1961, during which he portrayed this man on the moon. He wanted to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. And at that time, it was sheer impossible, but it was relevant because of the race against the Russians. And most of all, it was this clear view of a man standing on the moon that excited people. And I thought, well, nowadays, you don't have to be called Kennedy anymore to create excitement or a following, but you have to create your own man on the moon. So 5 years ago, I started with nothing, no money, no network, no knowledge of plastic waste. But with one sentence, I want to build a boat made of plastic waste, yet I've never driven a boat, let alone built one. So please help me. I was 38 years old. I had 2 kids and a mortgage in Amsterdam. So my wife asked me, okay, Marius, great plan, but how are you going to provide for our kids? And at that time, I didn't really know, but I had a few convictions. The first conviction was that civilians, companies, and government institutions share the same frustration. We all see those huge problems that we are faced with in terms of economy, the environment, immigration, you name it. And we all feel small. But we all, or most of us, want to do something about it, but we don't know how to do anymore. We're all in meetings, thinking of ideas, but actually creating things or doing things is a much different thing. Second conviction is more from my marketing background, focused on companies, is that a sustainable competitive advantage is a matter of doing. Everybody can hire an advertising company nowadays, creating all sorts of great campaigns, especially in the field of sustainability. But you can't really copy what you are doing. If you are doing something right and you do it first, then you have a sustainable competitive advantage above your competitor. So I said to my wife, I'm going to be the one to take action. I'm going to be the one experienced. And after a while, companies who want to do stuff as well, I don't know how to, are going to approach me and they're going to pay me. She wasn't convinced. But my ambition behind it was that from this challenge, there would exist a network, a growing network of civilians, companies, and government institutions on a local basis that wanted to work together towards a positive and very concrete outcome. And from that, new possibilities would exist. Still, my wife wasn't convinced. But anyways, I started, and I was right. Because as soon as I published my thoughts, as soon as I published my Man on the Moon, I was contacted by people from all over Holland who wanted to help me. So within a few weeks, I was traveling through Holland, talking to all sorts of people, so individuals, companies, government institutions, and they wanted to help me. So some sort of an organization evolved. And after a while, I was talking to so many people that I said to one of my new colleagues, well, I wanted to start doing stuff, not talking all the time. So we're from Amsterdam. We can arrange some boats, some friends, some food and drinks, and fishing nets, and we go plastic fishing. And we call it old-fashioned Amsterdam plastic fishing, as if it's been a long-standing tradition, as if we've been doing this for years. And we liked the idea, so we said, okay, let's invite other people as well. I asked a friend of mine who's the designer to design some sort of a vintage poster. We put it online and invited everybody. We thought if 50 people turn up on 10 boats, we'll be fine. Well, for the first event, 450 people turned up on 30 boats. The second event, 1,200 people on 72 boats. People just love to go plastic fishing on the canals of Amsterdam. I never thought of this, it just happened, because we started doing. And then the marketing director of Starbucks came to me, Starbucks Coffee, and he said, well, could you also create an event for us, a company event? And it was my first invoice that I sent. Last year, we went plastic fishing with 41 different companies, 70 times in totals. So a business model evolved after all. What did we do with the plastics? Well, we separated the bottles from all the other material, because in the meantime, we had found out that we could create foam plates from recycled PET bottles. And we used those foam plates as a basis to build our boats. And 2 years ago, we presented our first boat made out of Amsterdam Canal plastic, and it became a fishing boat. Thank you. It was a fishing boat because at that time I had already decided that I wanted to become a plastic fisherman, would be my occupation. The Plastic Whale would be the first professional plastic fishing company in the world. So that's what we proclaimed. And the thing was that we thought that from the catch, so from the plastic bottles, we would create filament for 3D printing and create objects that we would sell, and that's how I would make my money. But a totally different thing happened. We were approached by all these companies that wanted to go plastic fishing. So we started out with one boat 2 years ago. Last year, we got 2 new sponsors, because as soon as we get a new sponsor, we build a new boat. And now we have a fleet of 7 boats. And we've got 6 more companies who want a boat. So we're growing really fast. We're also currently building an 8-meter boat for Seaports Groningen, large seaports in the north of Holland. We're starting a franchise in Rotterdam. And we're growing really fast because our campaign is plastic-free canals for Amsterdam. But my ambition has always been to copy this to other cities in Holland, Europe, or the rest of the world. And that's actually what's happening now. I'm here now in India. Obviously, I would love to start doing things over here, but I get emails from all over the globe. People want to start plastic fishing or plastic whale in the Philippines, in Africa, the States, you name it. Well, this is another thing that evolved from plastic whale. As I said, I wanted to create this network of people, and from this network, new things will evolve. This is one of those new things, because one of my shareholders, he's an old skater. He wanted to see if we could create skateboards from plastic waste. Together with students, we tried, and last year they came up with this prototype. It's completely made out of bottle caps. And the process is really simple. You have an oven, you have a mold, you have the bottle caps, you melt the bottle caps in the oven, put it in a mold, and after a few hours, you have a unique handmade skateboard. And this summer, we're starting our plan to go board baking at large music festivals, because we have created a new board bakery, a new brand, a new company called Waste Boards. And the thing is that we want to create skateboards right on site. So we take our mobile board bakery to large music events where there's a lot of young people. Plastic waste is a huge problem over there as well. And we collect the bottle caps right at the music events, and we start baking boards from that. And the bigger picture of this is that you can actually close the doors, ship the whole thing to anywhere you like in the world, and you can create value from waste wherever you like, and also create an economic impulse wherever you like. So for instance, here in Mumbai. So today, I'm not just a plastic fisherman, I'm also a board baker. I started out, like I said, 5 years ago with absolutely nothing but just one sentence, one challenge. I would like to challenge you to be part of this challenge and see what we can do here in India. Thank you very much.
The first time you sent this call out, 450 people showed up.
Exactly.
The second time was 1,200 people?
Exactly.
1,200 people.
Yeah.
There are some very bored people in Amsterdam. They do know there are strip clubs there, right?
Yeah, they just came from there. There's a lot of people in Amsterdam who acknowledge the problem, but also who want to do something against the problem, who have really good jobs, they're not bored at all, they have not much time in their agenda, but they want to do next to what they do during the day, they want to spend time during doing something good. So, yeah.
You know, to me, this is the takeaway from this evening, and without being facetious and without any more jokes, the fact that you can take, as you have, where you can take someone else's garbage, convert it into first a social problem and a social issue, and then make a business out of it that is a sustainable business with companies paying you to do it, I think that's real innovation. And I think that's finding a niche out of a problem that no one knew existed and making an opportunity out of it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we get all our speakers back up on stage, please? For those of you wondering why your mobile phones are missing, this guy's got them.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. These books are really heavy, so maybe you can hold them. I'd first like to thank all the speakers tonight. They've gone a long way from the Netherlands, some from Ibiza, some from Germany. But I would like to thank them all and ask you for a big round of applause for them.
Good.
Maybe you can.
Voila.
Sorry, too heavy. Thanks.
I'll keep this on.
And finally, I would also like to special thanks to Anish for the great hosting of the evening. Come up on stage. Thank you very much for your hosting.
I'm sorry, what is that, the bill? It is. Go ahead. Thank you.
For now, I would like to ask you to enjoy tonight. Have some food over there, have some drinks, have some talks with our innovators here. And let's see if you can be as innovative as they are. So, well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Cheers.